I was having it's your boy Rico from RicoScores, and the video that I've been working on for a while. I felt like it's the perfect time to go ahead and do it, especially with this upcoming game against the Cowboys. And I'm gonna do a video on this separately as well very soon, especially before we play the Cowboys, because it looks like we're gonna rest a lot of our starters, dog. It looks like if anybody has any knick-knack, any little boo-boo, any scratch, they're not playing. So my point is, we're going to this Cowboys game with not much hope, and even on top of that, most of us want to lose so we can get the top draft pick. So what do we have to look forward to? Because it does suck as a Commanders fan that it feels like the best part of the season is always the off season, not the regular season, and no hopes of a postseason. And even the last time we made the postseason, yeah, my boy Rio Robinson always calling it the Mickey Mouse postseason, the Mickey Mouse year, man. That wasn't it, man. I don't even count that division win. I'm sorry. I don't have any merch from it or nothing. Leave me alone with that one. I do not care. So, again, what are some of the things we have to be optimistic about going into this offseason? I'm working on a lot of videos for that, but most notably is this cap space, man. I mean, the cat's out of the bag. You see it in the title. The Washington Commanders have the #1 most projected cap space in 2024, this upcoming offseason. And we're going to take a look at, or at least talk about, how Washington can get $120 million in cap space, more than what we have right now. Also, is that enough money to get top free agents? Well, of course, relatively, it just depends on the market. Because if we have the most cap space, of course, that means we're more likely to get a lot of the top free agents that we may potentially want. It's up to the next regime. Eugene Shin, Josh Harris, Magic Johnson, potentially Donna Ponte if we hire her. The video that I just did a couple of days ago. It all depends on them. Also, who are the teams who's had the most cap space in previous years, and where are they now? We got to take a look at that, because does having the most cap space automatically mean that you have immediate and quick improvement, and that you just immediately vault into one of the better teams? You go from one of the worst teams. Typically, the worst teams have a lot of cap space, and then we're going to take a look at if a lot of these teams that have the most cap space at least get better within a couple of years or not. So we're going to take a look into all of that and more, but before we do, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Y'all know I'm Mr. Optimistic. You know I'm Mr. Glass Half Full. So expect a lot of optimistic things on the way. I'm also working on a mock draft, and this one's really fun too, because I was able to do like a slight trade back, not very far, and still get an elite court. You'll see, it's crazy. So stay tuned for that mock draft. That was a fun experimental one. Not even necessarily one that has a particular theme. Typically my mock drafts have a specific theme. This one I was just literally, chilling, like, let me try to have some fun on this mock draft simulator, and I came up with some crazy results, and I feel like that's worthy of a video in itself, especially since it's been a few weeks since I've done one anyway. So stay tuned for all of the content, all of that and more, but let's go ahead and dive into this video. Let's get it. All right, so the Commanders have the most projected cap space going into this 2024 offseason. Of course, it sucks that early January we're talking about the offseason while a lot of other teams are talking about postseason. Even this Week 18 game matchup coming up for a lot of these teams actually matters. Like whether they win or lose affects whether they make the playoffs or not and things like that. Where our games have been inconsequential for like at least 4 or 5 weeks. Statistically, it's been like 3-4 weeks, but it's felt like it at least the past like 7. So at the very least, we have something to look forward to in the offseason. That's having the most cap space with an entirely new regime. And of course, I've talked about this in several videos, several live streams and things like that. Why I'm super optimistic. Why that this new regime is going to get a lot of the things that we haven't previously gotten right. I think they're going to get it right. Because I think Josh Harris is going to bring in a GM, a great GM. That GM is gonna bring in the right head coach, defensive coordinator, and everything else is gonna fall into place after that. I think we're gonna have great personnel, scouting, personnel decisions, team building, development. Development's a huge part too, man. A lot of people think you just gotta find the great players. No, you also have to develop them. That's why a lot of these great teams out here, like the Ravens and Dolphins and the Chargers, are getting excellence out of later round draft picks. Because it's not just scouting, it's also some development. They don't just come straight out of college ready to ball out. And I feel like this next regime is going to do a great job of that. If for anything, the hires that Josh Harris has already made, and Mob Dog, Eugene Shin already did a full breakdown on that, and Tim McGrath, who already did a full breakdown on, and Donna Ponte, who we are potentially linked to bringing in to potentially not necessarily maybe be a GM, but maybe like a EVP of personnel decisions and operations, like a president type of role that's either above the GM or adjacent to it. I don't know. Either way, I'm really excited. I'm very optimistic about where we're going. And the next regime, having the most cap space in the NFL by over $6 million is very significant. That's the difference in maybe a couple of players or more in cap space. Right now, we're number one with $85.480 million. Then you have the Tennessee Titans. They're second with $79 million. Then the Texans, $74 million. The Patriots, $72 million, $72.8 million, kind of 73. Indianapolis Colts, $72.7. The Bengals, $70. Chicago Bears, $62. The Detroit Lions, $61. The Raiders, $52. And then the Arizona Cardinals are 10th with $52 as well. And when you're looking at the rest of the NFC East, you have the Giants, who are 15th. You have the Eagles, who are 18th. And then the Cowboys, who are 26th. And then you have the Chargers. There's a lot of teams out there in cap space hell, no man's land right now, because going from number 25, the Pittsburgh Steelers, down, all of those guys are in the negatives. The Saints are in severe negatives. They have negative $75 million. They have the lowest cap space, which is crazy, because it's like they all bet in on this season and it hasn't worked out that well. Even though us as Commanders fans are rooting for them to ball out against the Falcons because they beat the Falcons, that drastically increases our chances of keeping that number 2 overall pick rather than moving back to the number 3 and the Patriots passing us. So make sure you root for the Saints this upcoming weekend. But you have the Dallas Cowboys, who are 26th, right behind the Steelers with negative $11 million in cap space. You have the Chargers, who are potentially out there fighting, competing with us for the next GM, head coach. They need a whole new regime as well. And they're negative $34 million. So at least that's one of the competitors, even though they do have a Justin Herbert, which is going to help them a lot. They have a lot. They have a lot going against them right now, and that's one of our competitors. That's a good thing to hear right now. But again, at the end of the day, we have the most cap space in the NFL. But at the same time, all of that cap space, everything that glitters is not gold. Because a lot of that cap space, man, you got to remember, we're losing a lot of our great players, or at the very least starters. I mean, at this point, it's hard to say anybody's great with nobody making the Pro Bowl, and you can definitely argue deservingly so. I feel like if you had to make one argument for one guy that really deserved it, is maybe Samuel Cosmi. But outside of that, yeah, man. So we have a lot of starters at the very least leaving, and we can argue with as bad as we were, clearly the starters weren't that great, so what are we really losing? But at the same time, arguably your most efficient receiver this season, Curtis Samuel, unrestricted free agent. Kendall Fuller, one of your starting corners, Pro Football Focus loves him, feels like he's your best corner by far. And if you look at the stats, somebody I saw on Twitter somewhere posted like his stats next to Sauce Gardner's. They have the exact same stats. I'm not saying he's Sauce Gardner at all, but that's how much he matters to this defense. Unrestricted free agent, and he's going to be 29 this offseason. Then, of course, you have Jacoby Brissett, who was the only person that really had Eric Bieniemy's offense looking like Eric Bieniemy even cared or tried in the spurts that he played these past couple of weeks. Then you have Cody Barton. Your entire linebacker core is gone. Jamin Davis is on IR, and he's dealing with multiple cases right now with reckless driving and speeding and all of that stuff. So right now, we literally have no linebackers. Like, literally none. Cody Barton, Khaleke Hudson, and David Mayo. And you could argue you don't even want to keep either of those guys. I feel like Khaleke Hudson, we need to give him another chance. Cody Barton, if he's willing to re-sign for extremely cheap, but hopefully he's not the starter, just like a backup maybe, I can see that. But right now, our linebacker group is depleted. I feel like we already have a lot of needs, and then a lot of these guys becoming unrestricted free agents makes it even worse. I mean, Cornelius Lucas, a lot of people felt like he should have been starting the left tackle this season over Charles Leno majority of the time, especially the way he played well against the Falcons when Charles Leno had to miss that game due to a tragic, unforeseen event. He's an unrestricted free agent. So your backup swing tackle that can step in at right or left, depending on the injury, is now gone, potentially leaving if the next regime doesn't want to re-sign them. And when it comes to new regimes, new GMs, new head coaches, and all of that type of stuff, player retention is not likely at all. Very low chances that we bring a lot of these guys back, just to get that out the way. Jeremy Reeves, your all-pro special teamer who's pretty much missed all of the season with an injury. He's been on IR. Then you have all of our edge rushers in F.A. Obata, Casey Hill, James Smith-Williams, all of those guys that And FL Bada is currently on IR. He's banged up. Well, who knows if he's even ready by week 1 this upcoming regular season in 2024. So we have an edge rusher problem, especially after you already traded away Chase Young and Montez Sweat. We are completely devoid of linebackers and edge rushers right now as far as like starting caliber guys. I mean, I'm liking what I'm seeing from KJ Henry at times. Again, if we could bring back Khalid Hudson, that'd be nice. But Jamin Davis on IR dealing with multiple cases. We're struggling in those departments right now. Struggling mightily. And who knows? Maybe we even go back to a 3-4 system, base defense type of thing. And that can make everything even more confusing and create even more holes on this team that we already have. Your starting center right now, and Tyler Larson, because your free agency signing in Nick Gates was so bad that you had to go to the backup to be your starting center. He's an unrestricted free agent. So who's starting the center for us next year right now? I mean, there's a lot of options in free agency in the draft, but I'm just trying to paint the picture right now. So many guys. Antonio Gibson, one of your two-headed monsters in the running back group, unrestricted free agent. Who knows if they want to bring him back? Jamison Crowder, even though he was absolutely terrible a couple of weeks ago at punt returning, literally just handed the Jets the game. Other than that game, he's been excellent for us, and I really hope we bring him back. But your starting punt returner is also an unrestricted free agent. Joey Sly, your starting kicker right now, and I would hope your franchise kicker, I think, is really good as long as you have a long snapper that can snap it the right way to get it done. Jabril Cox, who we still haven't even seen get a real chance. Hopefully he somehow gets a chance in this last game against the Cowboys. I've been screaming for us to start him for the past few weeks because we have nothing to lose. We're not playing for anything playoff wise. Winning is not the priority. You might as well play him as soon as possible and as much as possible. Then you have Sadiq Charles, your starting left guard when healthy. Then you have Cameron Crowe, your starting strong safety, free safety, Buffalo nickel, star position, slot corner whenever you need it. Basically, your ace in the hole, your best tight end defender. Out of our entire defense, Cameron Crowe gives you the best hope at defending other teams' tight ends. He's an unrestricted free agent, and last time I checked, he was looking for big money and all of that type of stuff. So things can get really ugly right now. We're losing a lot of starters. So before we dive into the greatness and how happy I am to have a lot of this cap space, remember, we have a lot of this cap space because we're losing a lot of starters. And so I don't know how the next regime is going to handle that, but it could get ugly. I mean, look at these market values, dog. I mean, Lord have mercy. And it's kind of crazy that Curtis Samuel is projected to get less than Kendall Fuller and Cameron Curl. I can kind of understand in one way, but that is a little weird. But like Cameron Curl, if we're looking at having the most cap space, if you pay, just get Curtis Samuel out the way first. According to his average annual salary projected from Spot Track, it's an $11.5 million per year deal. If we sign him to that, we immediately move from the number 1 cap space to like somewhere in the top 5. So that just lets you know how easily this number 1 cap space can just go away. Are you trying to pay Kendall Fuller? They're projecting him to make even more than that, $14 million a year. You pay Kendall Fuller and Curtis Samuel, now we're barely hanging on into the top 10 of cap space. So again, that number 1 cap space is all fine and dandy. That's all nice and all, but you got to remember who we're losing to have that much. And then Cameron Crowe is estimated to get $15.3 million per year. That's ridiculous. So I highly doubt we bring back all 3 of those guys. Highly doubt it. I'm not even sure if we bring back even one of them. I highly doubt the next regime will value any of those guys as much as Rivera and company did. I hope we bring them back, but I'm hoping we definitely bring them back for cheaper than whatever that is. Also, you got to remember, Curtis Samuel having one of those weird contracts to save us money early on. He will be a $4.8 million dead cap, even if he's not on our team, or if he's on the team, whatever. He's a $4.8 million dead cap, even as an unrestricted free agent, which is really weird because we did like the void years weird thing with him. So maybe the next regime can come in and finesse that situation, give him an extension to prolong that dead cap even further and to spread some of that cap space over the course of a couple of years. Doubt it happens, but you never know. Donna Ponte, again, the person I did the video on a couple of days ago, is a cap guru, and maybe she can come in and handle that type of situation. But also, if you're trying to gain more cap space, and this is quite likely to happen, you can cut Charles Leno and save you an additional $7.5 million. Now, is that enough to re-sign Antonio Gibson and Khalid Hudson as an example? Maybe so, because Antonio Gibson's market value is probably way lower than you'd expect. I mean, but then again, he hasn't been as productive as we hoped. I mean, coming into the season after we hired Eric Bieniemy, I thought Antonio Gibson was about to be a fantasy god. But they're only projecting him to get $3.6 million annually. And I'm pretty sure Khalid Hudson is very cheap as well. So cutting Charles Leno, you could probably bring those two guys back. One of your top 2 running backs and arguably at the very least, one of your top 3 linebackers, one of your top 2 probably. You could bring both of those guys back for the money that you would use to cut Charles Leno. And if we're going tackle in the first round, or if we may want to attack tackle in free agency, you can cut him, get some of that money back, and then use some of that money to potentially re-sign some guys we need or go get some other guys. Also, as far as potential cuts that can happen, cutting Logan Thomas, which is also quite likely because the next regime may just not really feel the fact how old he is, injury prone, and like I keep saying, man, you keep throwing the ball to Logan Thomas, he's due for a fumble. Every time we start giving him more and more touches, it seems like there's an inevitable fumble on the way. And so next regime may not want to deal with that. And it's crazy too, because both Logan Thomas and Charles Leno were rumored cuts before this bad season even happened. And again, the ability to cut him and save this much cap space because of how much dead cap works and things like that, I wouldn't be surprised. So back to Logan, cutting him saves Washington another $6.4 million. So if you cut Charles Leno and Logan Thomas, you save somewhere around $14 million in cap space, which is like, I mean, we already have the #1 amount in cap space, but if you wanted, like I said, a lot of those unrestricted free agents that are leaving, you can be able to re-sign some of those guys and still keep that #1 amount in cap space. We'll see. And if you really want to get really petty, you could cut Benjamin St-Juste and Dyami Brown for a whopping total of $3 million from both of them. But that's about it as far as potential cuts that could save us any realistic amount of money that you could even do anything with. Jonathan Allen is the only person whose dead cap, if cut, is small compared to his cap space while on the team. But I highly doubt cutting him will be a thing. We're either going to trade him or keep him. You're just not going to cut Jonathan Allen. That's silly. But if you were to cut Jonathan Allen, that would save you almost another $10 million worth in cap space. Everybody else, there's no point. You either, like, the dead cap is even more than the cap space they would take up on your team in a lot of situations. So those are your only potential cuts in order of most likely. So Charles Leno, then Logan Thomas, then you have the Benjamin St-Juste and Dyami Brown pairing, and then you also have Jonathan Allen, who's dead last in likelihood. Again, you trade him or you keep him. There's just no cutting him. But, you know, that's a lot of cap space you get in return. Also, is there a way that we can restructure contracts for McLaurin, Jonathan Allen, or Daron Payne? Because when you keep pushing money back, you end up technically only paying like 80 cents to $1. That's why people do it. Because I know when people look at, well, yeah, if you keep delaying the money that they're getting, first of all, a lot of free agents just want their money now. They don't care about your cap space. They want to get paid now. But when you delay that money, yes, you make it to where you pay it later, not now. That's just a worry about it later thing. The counter argument to that has always been, well, you're going to have to pay it eventually. Well, yeah, you do. But with the way that the cap space increases every year, especially since after COVID and we went down, but now it's starting to increase steadily every year like it used to before the whole COVID situation and all of that happened, you're kind of paying like 80 cents to $1. Like $30 million right now is completely different than $30 million 2 years down the line, especially according to the NFL market and how the cap space increases and how the market changes, how defensive tackles, wide receivers, name the position. Every time, every offseason, the market resets itself and there's a new highest paid this guy at that position. Whether they deserve it or not, it's just how the market works. So you can continue to push those contracts back because, again, you're technically paying 80 cents to $1. Now, draft dudes, I don't know how they did it. I tried to look it up everywhere I could. I don't exactly know how, but the draft dudes, if you follow their podcast, they do a lot of draft stuff, but they did a deep dive on the Commanders and the things we should be optimistic about and everything. You go listen to that if you want to, because they actually did a really good deep dive. You know, typically when people that cover multiple teams, like the entire NFL, entire college football, and don't only focus on the Commanders, they're not very detailed. They make a lot of assumptions in certain ways. No, they actually did a really good job. And they said that with restructures, the Commanders could actually get up to $121 million worth of cap space. Their exact quote. Again, me being Rico of Street Scores, even with all the research that I've done, I don't exactly know how they did it, but they said it with complete confidence that that's a real thing that could happen. So I'm assuming that they're saying, like with Jonathan Allen, again, Terry McLaurin, Deron Payne, guys I've named, you could potentially restructure their contracts in a way that not only will we have the most cap space in the NFL, but we will have the most cap space by far in the NFL. But either way, no matter what, whatever the next regime wants to do, cap space is not the issue or a limiter. That's like the main point of this video. Cap space is not in the way. Whatever this next regime wants to do, they have all of the capital to do it. Both cap space and free agency and draft-wise, coming up in this draft. I'm super excited. This 2024 draft, all of the draft capital you need to potentially have a number 2 overall pick, 2 second-round picks that are both going to be within the top 10 picks of the second round. Oh, my Lord, man. You can really change the franchise around. You can come in and have an immediate impact, which I'm pretty sure is going to attract more GMs. I'm super excited, man. No matter what you want to do, restructure, don't restructure. Resign guys, don't resign guys. No matter what, this team not only has a top 3 draft pick, potentially number 2, but also the most cap space in the NFL. What great GM wouldn't want to take a chance on that? Like, give me these tools, I can make something shake. Especially those elite assistant GMs, you know, those guys that are looking for an opportunity to show how they can build their own Super Bowl contender that may not be getting the credit that they deserve where they currently are. They can go from being an assistant GM somewhere else, doing a great job, coming here being the GM, running the show, and to turn this awful Commanders team with the number 2 overall pick and turn them into a potential Super Bowl contender, hopefully within a few years. That's going to look great on you. And I'm pretty sure GMs, the smart guys, the smart GMs, the great GMs out there are looking at the opportunity like, yeah, man, we could work with that. This team has a completely clean slate. They don't have a bunch of dead cap that I got to worry about, a whole bunch of aging stars I got to worry about. Like, I think the Chargers, Justin Herbert is saving their situation because most of their best players are aging, constantly hurt, and then again they're negative like 30 million in cap space right now. That Chargers situation is a little like, whoo, that's a little overwhelming. I don't know if I want to deal with that. But the Commanders over there in the DMV area, which should be a top market in sports, but because of the basketball team and the NFL team not being good, it doesn't really feel like it. So hey man, I'm telling y'all, there's gonna be GMs wanting to come. It won't be us fighting for GMs. I think it's gonna be GMs fighting to come be our GM. I think it's gonna be the other way around. I think we're a great situation to come into. Now also, if you look ahead at guys with 1 year left to see who we could potentially extend early in hopes of getting a discount for future seasons, because if you re-sign them now, you can potentially get them for cheaper longer term rather than wait till they're an unrestricted free agent and there's all this competition for them. All of the teams are calling them in the open period when you're legally allowed to tamper and stuff like that. That's only going to raise up the price. I mean, we talked to one of these guys that are currently on our team now. It's just us in their ear. But you wait until their contract's about to end, like right now how we have all these unrestricted free agents coming up and you have teams outbidding each other, including us, things get a little weird. So we could take a look at some guys that are coming up later on. There will be 2025 unrestricted free agents. You have Charles Leno, which again, I think he's gone. Logan Thomas, I think he's gone as well. Jamin Davis. Again, even just outside of the IR thing, the multiple court cases going on right now, I was afraid he wouldn't play this past 2023 season. He might as well have gotten the jail out the way this season if he's going to end up going to jail, because this was a pointless season, basically. So now I'm worried about him potentially playing 2024, because now the situation looks even worse right now than it looked before the season started. Then you have Tress Way. I mean, I know he's not going to cost a lot as a punter, but still. Samuel Cosmi, again, I'm working on a video right now to basically prove how Samuel Cosmi is arguably the best player on this team. That's one contract where it's really like, yeah, you may want to go ahead and jump on this Samuel Cosmi thing now before he goes into this next season. This 2024 season becomes like a Pro Bowler, all pro, which I think he has the potential to do. And I'm gonna bring up a lot of stats wise, some Pro Football Focus grades, all of that kind of stuff to prove why he could potentially be that elite guard that we've been looking for a long time, that Brandon Sheriff replacement. I think he can literally be that. You may want to go ahead and get ahead on that now, because if you wait until he's an unrestricted free agent in the 2025 offseason after this upcoming 2024 regular season, hopefully postseason for us, we'll see, that price is only going to go up. It may even double. Also, do you want to go ahead and get ahead on the Benjamin St-Juste, De'Ami Brown, John Bates, Derek Forrest, especially coming off of a low-end season with him being hurt so much? You could probably get him for very cheap long-term if you want to go ahead and knock that out. You got guys like Curtis Hodges, Armani Rogers, my guy. Outside of that, it's really nobody noteworthy. But next regime may want to come in and think about that. When you're looking at us having the #1 amount of cap space, you sacrifice a little bit of cap space now, but it's going to be a huge benefit to you later on down the road if you just go ahead and give Samuel Cosme a long-term deal now. I've seen enough. Let's go ahead and sign him long-term now. Let's get that done. Whether you want to play guard or tackle, let me know, type of thing. I think staying at guard is where he's potentially at his best. I think that's where he can become an all-pro, but at the same time, that much talent wasted at guard rather than tackle is interesting as well. But if we can have 2 elite tackles, we won't even have to worry about that. Just keep him at guard. Don't even worry about it. But the next regime also has a decision to make as far as Jamin Davis's 5th-year option. Yeah, it's that time now. But everybody and their mama knows the Commanders are not picking that up. New regime, old regime, next regime, nobody's picking that up. I wouldn't. $13.3 million fully guaranteed against the cap in 2025. No, never. Even if you're ignoring the multiple legal cases he has going on and the fact that he may not even be able to play, suspension, whatever, and then coming off of IR, who knows if he's gonna still be what he was, and then he's not living up to the first round pick to where he even has an option for a 5th-year option. Like, he's not even living up to that caliber of player yet. He's gotten better, he's been pretty good, but he has not lived up to what the 19th overall pick that he was. Jamin Davis, giving him $13.3 million worth of guaranteed money against the cap for 2025, and you're making that decision this offseason, that's not gonna happen, dog. There's no way they do that. Just to let you know, the 5th-year option deadline is May 2nd as well. They have a while to think about it, but it's not gonna happen. So again, I just wanted to provide every angle possible as far as this whole cap space situation, where some could go, where we could gain some, where we could lose some. Potentially Jamin Davis could be something that we lose, but it's not going to happen. It's like a 0.00001% chance. But again, I'm Rico Street Scores. I got to do my due diligence, and I had to bring that up there. Now, let's take a look at some of the top free agents, and I'm going to do a complete video breakdown on top free agents. So we're just going to kind of skim through this right now. But looking at it, if you want to go get an elite edge rusher, you have the money to do that. His market value right now is a projected $21.7 million per year. You easily have the money to do that if you want to next regime. So go get an elite edge rusher, which we probably have to do because we have so many needs that we need to cover in the draft as well, that you may want to go ahead and get your starting edge rusher, the guy that you know can contribute now, because the draft is kind of like a crapshoot. You're gambling. When it comes to free agents, it's a more surefire thing. It's not absolutely surefire, but you have a little bit more confidence in a guy being who he's going to be out of free agency as a veteran based on what they've done already in the NFL, more so than the guys coming out of college. You just never know with college. No matter how smart you are, no matter how well you scout, you never know. So I think edge rusher is one of those positions you got to get in free agency. We can't play around with that. I like some of the talent, some of the things I've seen from KJ Henry. Andre Jones looked like an off-season warrior, but that's literally it. I mean, even if you bring back Case Hill and J. Smith-Williams, that isn't good enough to me. Go ahead and get Brian Burns, potentially for $22 million a year. Mekhi Becton looked awful these past few weeks, especially against us. He looked bad against the same edge rushers that I'm not highly confident in. He looked bad against those guys, but a lot of people still believe in his talent coming out of Louisville. Right now, his projected market value is $13 million a year. I think if he's willing to do it for way less than that, maybe you give him a chance at right tackle or something like that. We'll see. I don't know. And then also at linebacker, we need linebacker, and I think you go linebacker in the draft and free agency. If you want to get one of the top guys in free agency, you could potentially look at a Patrick Queen at a market value of $18.5 million a year. If you want to do that, you easily have the money to do that as well. And who knows, maybe this next regime comes in here and is the complete antithesis of everything that Ron Rivera was. And instead of just bargain bin shopping, actually goes and gets the top certified guys and gives them the money that they deserve. And now we don't even have to worry about or think about that position anymore. All of these Ron Rivera free agency signings, yeah, they've worked out to some extent at times, but we're always worried, like, yeah, we brought this guy in, but do we know if he's going to be great or not? You go and get a Brian Burns, an edge rusher, I'm not worried about that position anymore. At all. I'm honestly not. Now, also, just to let you know, this is a great year for offensive line in the draft, but it's terrible in free agency. I mean, again, the fact that I had to bring up Mekhi Becton lets you know how ugly the market is right now. And it's crazy because pass rusher is the exact opposite. There's some potentially good pass rushers in this draft, but if you're looking for pass rusher, you do that in free agency. So I say offensive line in the draft, edge rusher in free agency. You may want to do a mix of both for both positions, but that's how you need to prioritize those. Just to kind of put that out there. It doesn't really have much to deal with the cap space as far as like analyzing that, but just to give you an idea of where we may spend some of that cap space, probably going to spend more on edge rusher in free agency than offensive line, and then we're going to go crazy offensive line in the draft. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Now, some of y'all may literally, this probably part of the video that you care the most about. Who are the teams who had the most cap space in previous years, and where are they now? Is there any correlation with having the most cap space to having a quick improvement? Like just being able to have the money to go out there and spend your money, and did it actually work out for those guys? So now we're taking a look at the 2023 offseason. Before this regular season happened, who had the most cap space? You had the Bears, the Texans, the Falcons, the Cardinals, Packers, Panthers, Lions, Colts, Raiders, Bengals. That's your top 10. And we're more so just going to probably focus on like the top 5 in other years and things like that. But at the same time, even though the Bears had the most cap space, it was only 41 million, which right now, if the 41 million would have been 13th in cap space order, according to, you know, the projected cap space we're going to have in this upcoming offseason, because we're still recovering from all of the stuff that happened with COVID and the NFL losing money and things like that. So 2023 offseason, there wasn't just a lot of cap space to go around. The Bears had the most with 41 million, and they had the most by almost double the guy in second place, the Texans, with 25 million. So it's kind of hard to make an astute conclusion on what happened here. But the Bears, they improved. I mean, they went out there and got Tremaine Edmonds, among others, and were better. They traded for DJ Moore. You know, they improved. They weren't great, but they beat the Lions and almost beat them twice, and the Lions were a good team. The Texans improved mightily. They went from awful, I mean, like top odds to get potentially the one of the highest draft picks the next draft, and now they're potentially about to make the playoffs. Now I'm very confident in the fact that they would have made the playoffs if CJ Stroud didn't get hurt. Then you have the Falcons. They're sorry, no matter what they do, they're outliers in any chart or graph or data that you're looking at. Sorry, little Falcons, we ain't gonna include them. Cardinals, they didn't really do much, but granted, Kyler Murray was injured, and when Kyler Murray got healthy, hey, them boys beat the Eagles, so you never know, man. Maybe them top cap space teams looking like something. The Packers have a lot of momentum going into right now. Once Jordan Love started to work out, and that team actually looks pretty good. It's built well top to bottom. There was always questions about, well, is Jordan Love good enough? There you go. Those are your top 5 cap spaces in 2023, and I think all of those teams other than the Falcons did pretty well and improved. Now, the 2022 offseason before the 2022 regular season, you have the Colts, who had the most cap space. Look at where they're at now. Even with all of the injuries, they don't have their running back 1 most of the season. They don't have their QB 1 almost, it feels like, the entire season. They've lost their wide receiver 1 a lot of the season as well, a few games. And they're still doing really well. Playoff hunt and all of that. Then you have the Dolphins 2nd. Look at where they are. Then you have the Seahawks 4th. Look at where they are. Now the Jets are 5th, but they have a great roster top to bottom, especially defensively. Their problem is quarterback. Once they get quarterback solved, I mean, we would be talking about them in a much different light. We were looking at them as if they were going to be true, serious playoff contenders if Aaron Rodgers would have stayed healthy this whole season. So those are at the very least 3 out of the top 4 cap space teams from 2022 offseason that are doing really well right now. And then let's go back to the 2021 offseason. How are those guys doing? So number 1 in cap space, the Jaguars. They're doing very well. Now, granted, there's a lot of factors that go into this. There's coaching changes. Did they draft well? It's not just about having cap space, but it helps. But the Jaguars, number 1, they're doing pretty well. There go the Jets again. Then you have the Patriots 3rd. They spent all of that money and didn't help them much. Then you have the Colts 4th. And again, look at where they are now. And the Bengals are 5th. And without Joe Burrow getting hurt, even before Joe Burrow getting hurt, though, they weren't that great, it seemed like. But you never know, man. They may have had something going. So that one's a little bit more N/A on that. But we'll see. Then going to the 2020 offseason, Dolphins are number 1, Colts number 1, Bills number 3, and then you have the Buccaneers, and then you have the Giants 5th. At the very least, the Bills, Colts, and Dolphins, look at where they are now. It helped, man. The Dolphins made a lot of moves in free agency and trades, because you're not just talking about who you sign in free agency. You have to have the money and cap space to be able to make certain trades, and to get Bradley Chubb from the Denver Broncos and Jalen Ramsey and all of that type of stuff. That's because they had the cap space to do it. But again, there's a lot of factors that play into this. Tua's development, Mike McDaniels and Neville or whatever his name is, the passing game coordinator, that's a genius over there as well. Tyreek Hill, another example of cap space. You have to have the cap space to give him the most money out of any receiver in NFL history. Cap space matters, man. It's not the end all be all. Again, there's a lot of factors, like I said, Mike McDaniel and Tua's development and drafting development of players, but cap space surely helped, I'll tell you that. And then when you look at 2019, again, you have the Colts, then you have the Jets. That hasn't worked out necessarily. The Texans, the Bills, the Browns, the Raiders are turning this season around. The 49ers, the Seahawks, the Bengals, the Cowboys. You can keep going and going. All of those teams are the teams that have the top cap spaces. And you could argue that a lot of those teams are some of the best teams in the NFL right now. So, again, there's a lot of factors included. But at the same time, hey man, it looks like there may at least be a small correlation to having a lot of cap space and being a great team soon afterwards. Maybe not within 1 year, but at least within 2 or 3 years, you're going to become one of those better teams. Again, there's a lot of things, coaching, player evaluation, scouting, development, but that cap space is a big boost, man. I'm telling you, it's a huge boost, man. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button. Stiff arm the subscription button on the way out if you haven't yet, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, because I have so many video ideas that I'm working on. And if you're not a channel member, go ahead and become one of those as well, because I'm also working on exclusive videos for y'all, especially a lot of film sessions. Like if you're curious about whether Michael Penix is actually really that good, or if this is just a under the bright light situation, late bloomer type of thing, like I'm gonna explore. We're not just gonna do film sessions on guys, we're gonna explore certain topics. Like, is Caleb Williams actually as generational as we think? Let's take a look at Caleb Williams and look for all of the bad that he does, because he's so great, he's so highly touted, and I still feel like he is quarterback one in this draft, even though I feel like Jaden Daniels is very underrated. I'm gonna do a lot of theme-specific film sessions. Let's take a look at Caleb Williams' bad side, because we already know how great the good side is. We're gonna take a look at Michael Penix to see if this late playoff run is really who he is, or if this is just a fluke. And we're going to take a look at a lot of things, man. Linebackers, corners, whoever. So make sure you stay tuned for all of that. Stay tuned for all of the content. And again, of course, get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about this cap space. Are you very optimistic about our future? And do you feel like cap space affects as much as I think it does, as far as not only what moves the next regime can do, but the caliber of next regime personnel decisions we can get, like the next GM, the next president of operations, the next head coach? Do you think our cap space helps us potentially get one of the best guys rather than just some guy? So let me know how you feel about all of that, and I'm gonna catch y'all later. Appreciate y'all. I'm out.